here on the Watch Party on the Watch List channel here on TYT. Glad to see you guys. All you guys folks filed in nice and early to get a chance to get us started off. I didn't do what I promised myself I would do. I'm supposed to jump in early so that the folks who don't get their notifications, as you should, get at least the startup notification when we get it going, so you don't miss the beginning of this first story. So let me go ahead and wait a couple of seconds, let you guys all come in as you make your way through the doors. There's a lot happening today as usual. I probably should have started early just for the sake of getting it all in, but I noticed a few extra of you guys hung on yesterday when I went like 10 minutes over. I noticed it and I appreciate you. But for those of you that maybe missed some of the things that we wrapped up with, all these stories go up on the page after we're done. I go back, I check them out, I edit them down, throw in things, clean up those ahs and those ums that I say too many of, and you get a nice clean version to share with your friends as well. But if you're here right now, like this stream, share it as well. You guys are probably subscribers, and maybe redouble that bell to make sure that you guys are getting those notifications so that I don't have to ramble and waste the first couple minutes with this nonsense when you guys are actually ready for stories that we need to actually get to talking about. Stories that I think we don't get enough attention placed on, or with the right kind of thought behind what it is that our people that are supposed to be representing us are telling us. Just want to get these things out of the way so you guys can understand the whole purpose of this hour, this stream that I run. I want you guys to jump in for a second. I one more note here. Folks over, some folks messaged me over on Instagram. I appreciate you. I don't know if everybody wants their name mentioned, but Frank, there's a Frank that messaged me this first story that I'm going to get to. And I saw his message right after I'd seen the first blurb about it over on Threads. And I wasn't sure where it was going, how many people were really paying attention to it. And I knew when I looked up the news story on it that we were going to see little to nothing. I was completely right. But now that enough attention has been pushed towards it, folks are finally talking. And by the way, this story could have gone just by the wayside like many others that are very similar to it. Let's go ahead and get started, you guys. Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. It was a tragedy happening down at Delta State University down in Mississippi. Here we go.
The name Trayvon Reed needs to ring all over the United States right now. One, that is my cousin. Two, this is the second incident that has occurred within the last 5 years at this campus. Delta State University has had a run-in with me and their policemen. They tried to lock me up for no reason, and it didn't succeed in their favor. Just today, it was reported that my cousin was found hanging from a tree, and they trying to rule it as a suicide. Now, I just got off the phone with one of my cousins. She said she seen the reports, and it said that he was beaten and bruised. Both his arms were broken, and he had a broken leg. I'm gonna let y'all do the math.
There you saw the cousin of Trey Reed, who was found apparently what seems to be violently hung from a tree down in Mississippi on the campus of Delta State University where he went to school. There his cousin was talking about how he spoke to his other cousin who also had seen or heard about violent bruising and potentially broken bones on him, on his body, that they then discovered. Again, like I said, I saw a couple folks talking about it, begging for attention to be placed on it. And I'm going to let his cousin continue to speak about what it is that he knows.
Now, this school has history for being racist. Even going all the way back to the 1980 situation that happened with the sit-in. I'm trying to be composed in this video, and I'm trying to keep it all together. But it's a lot of shit that happens on that campus that don't nobody do shit about. It was incidents before my incidents. My big incident happened and that I reported that nobody did nothing about. Somebody tried to report me for a hate crime, and they was the one being homophobic, transphobic, and being racist. And they was trying to lock me up until I had multiple people come out and speak against him. There was an incident that I reported that it was a group of white students in a white truck while I was a freshman. They yelled at me and my friends and called us a bunch of monkeys. Please do a deep dive on this. Please, 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 please do your research on this. Do not let them sweep nothing else under the rug. Enough is enough.
He's talking the way someone who's experienced previous instances of conflicts, confrontations, and racism on that campus or in the nearby areas being swept under the rug. It's almost like he's not just making it up out of nowhere. But this is the thing, our approach to these types of stories always just goes by the wayside. Whatever, something else just happened. Actually, not even that much. Like I said, when I first saw this from a couple of folks that were just telling me about it, there was no full news coverage on it. There wasn't even local news coverage on it that I could see. Maybe there was a local newspaper or maybe the school campus paper talking about it. Who knows? There wasn't that much happening. But again, after the couple of days of it then being reported and talked about, especially in the wake of the kinds of conversations and discussions this country's having when it comes to murders happening blatantly and in broad daylight, I feel like it's something that is a good indicator of what we choose to pay attention to, who we think is important versus who we don't think is important. So finally, NBC News did have something that they did talk about it on.
Authorities say the body of 21-year-old Dimatravion Trey Reed was found hanged from a tree by a faculty member near the pickleball courts. Word spread quickly throughout the Cleveland campus, leaving students and others concerned and worried.
Well, because I am a Black student, hearing that happened to another Black student, it really made me feel, it's make me feel unsafe.
I do have to walk to class, and I like to go walk on the track, and it would be happy to know like what happened.
Local and state investigators immediately started looking into the incident. DSU Police Chief Michael Peeler says investigators found no evidence of foul play.
But pending an investigation, further investigation, and also from the medical examiner's office, we won't have more information until that part has been done.
People are looking for urgency and a sense of importance being placed on the life of someone that potentially was murdered. And then, of course, in the manner in which they found his body, being very particular to the way we've seen our country's history regularly do these things. These are the types of things that I think need to be highlighted to point out, since they want to keep telling about it, how far we've come, that there's still a lot of these issues happening in our country, even if it doesn't result in these types of conclusions. As again, Trey's cousin was talking about, he's had his issues with folks around there, but because he's not dead, we shouldn't care about it. That's always our mindset. Or then if it happens in front of us, which we've seen, suddenly it's so much worse. It happened in front of us. For the majority of this country's history, it was planned that way. People advocate for that to continue to happen, so I think it goes to the heart of the way we see things. And I think there's a perfect time to highlight this, especially since look at the way that they handled this investigation. Let me tell you guys the details of how this went down and reasons why maybe people don't trust many stories that get told to them. The family of Trey Reed is seeking an independent autopsy following the Delta State University student's death on Monday, when his body was found hanging from a tree on campus, as we've heard. So they had a press conference at Living Faith Miracle Temple Church of God in Christ in Grenada on Tuesday. And Vanessa Jones of the Jones Law Firm, who's representing that Reed family, told the media that the family's still waiting for some answers. Doesn't make much sense, does it? The family does not know exactly what happened on September 15th, she said. We're seeking answers from Delta State University. We're seeking answers from the coroner's office. So imagine, you find your family member there in that state, and this is the response you get from authorities. Despite online comments describing the death as a lynching, harking back to the U.S. South's well-documented history of lynching Black Americans, Police Chief Peeler, who you saw, I believe, in that video, said the circumstances behind his hanging are still under investigation. Okay. The investigation is conducted by the Cleveland Police Department. Sure. As of this time, he said, there's no evidence of foul play. While there's no evidence of foul play, the body has been retrieved by the Bolivar County Coroner's Office. And according to the Mississippi Free Press, Bolivar County Deputy Coroner Murray Rourke, who assisted that medical examination of his body, said that there was no evidence of broken arms or legs, despite what it is that his family member had said to his other family member. Last quote here. I don't think I should probably discuss this any further than that. My opinion is that it was self-done, and I have reasons for that, is what he said, despite the death still being in this active investigation. So he wants to come forward and make sure people don't jump to conclusions because of what he's seen already. But he said it's his opinion. I'm not sure if that's the medical opinion. I'm not sure if that's the conclusions of the autopsy. We'll see. But here's probably one of the worst aspects of this with his family. Vanessa Jones of that law firm criticized Delta State University and Bolivar County officials, who we just talked about, telling the Mississippi Free Press that both had left the Reed family completely in the dark after the discovery of Trey Reed's body, failing to properly communicate with them in their darkest moment. The lawyer said that the media knew about Trey's death before the family did. Why is that? It gives energy to this thought that they don't care, that it's going to go out to the media first, while they maybe, I don't know, don't fully investigate, don't fully take care of the crime scene, the potential crime scene, so they can really give answers to this man's family. You have to be concerned about people's lives. You have to care about the folks that are around them. You have to say things like, not that Reed had this, but we've been saying this recently. He's leaving behind a wife and 2 young children. He had a mother, he had a father, he had sisters, he had cousins. They're going to be in mourning for a very long time over this kind of death. And we just want to bring them justice and a resolution to their grief and their pain. Doesn't that sound familiar with things that we've been saying recently? But we don't always say that. In fact, sometimes authorities go to the media before they even go to that family that apparently don't care about or thinks that they don't need to know much about the situation. Here's more. That's one of the reasons for the urgency of this press conference, is what she said, because the family's getting all the information secondhand through news. And a confusing incident occurred the morning of Trey's death. The Grenada County Sheriff's Department arrived at Trey's family's home and informed the family that Trey was found dead in his dorm room in his bed. So it's obvious that now that they're reporting he was hung from a tree in the middle of campus somewhere. But the sheriff's department, at first, when they first decided to talk to his family, said that he was in his bedroom in his dorm, and that's where he passed away. So if you've seen, this has been the theme, I feel like we should keep going with this thought process. Just remember this. If you've seen someone blatantly lie to you about this particular situation, why would you believe anything else they've said to you? They're going to have to redeem themselves. If the authorities lied to you blatantly about how your kid, your brother, your cousin was found, wouldn't you go, I don't trust you anymore? Why did you lie to me? Why isn't that the automatic thought process for everybody that sees something like this? Last quote here from the way they've conducted this. Jones, again, that attorney, did not allege that Reed's death had been violent. They didn't even allege that yet, but demanded a full and independent investigation. We're not here to point fingers yet, but we will have answers. The possible constitutional violations of releasing Trey's name to the media immediately after it happened, we're going to get to that. But for now, the family is just asking for some answers. The simplest baseline request from the family is to hope for some answers. But in order for us to take some kind of importance in that, we have to take some kind of importance in this family, in the deceased, in how it happened, and to make sure, again, this is the last leg, that Janine Pirro and the rest of these folks in charge don't care to prevent. They just don't care. They'll blatantly say it. Why are we trying to prevent crime? So now there's dispute over the potential bruises and lacerations to his body, and also including the broken bones. The coroner's office and them are vehemently claiming that there were none of those. Maybe there weren't. But again, why should I believe you? You've already lied from the beginning. In a place where there has been violence, there has been racial tensions, and then this kind of thing happening. If the man was suicidal or was going through some kind of mental health issues, I'm not sure many folks decide to publicly display their body hanging from a tree, considering our history. I'm just saying. So our rhetoric is what's been getting talked about so much. Again, this happened at Mississippi, Delta State University down in Mississippi. But did you guys hear about from some of these HBCUs and some of the responses they've had as there was a country nationwide response to that killing last week that forced this?
At least 6 historically Black colleges have halted activities after receiving potential threats against their campuses. The lockdown measures come in the wake of yesterday's shooting of Charlie Kirk.
We're tracking now at least 7 of these HBCUs that have been under lockdown in the past 24 hours following that assassination of Charlie Kirk. That includes Alabama State, Hampton, Virginia State, Southern, Bethune-Cookman, Clark Atlanta, and also Spelman. The FBI has released a statement. I don't know if we have a full screen of it, but it does say that the FBI takes these threats very seriously because it puts innocent people at risk. While we have no information to indicate a credible threat, we will continue to work with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners to gather, share, and act upon threat information.
So HBCUs on lockdown, multiple HBCUs on lockdown because of threats that came from folks who decided to go in the middle of Huntington Beach or then go to vigils and get to chanting about how they're going to fight back against some enemy that they didn't know who it was. And once they discovered who it was, the race war was off. Not sure. But if you think about the sudden knee-jerk reaction to want to go to threatening college campuses, particular college campuses, you might realize that the attention is always on certain folks when they want violence in this country. But when the violence is carried out on them, the attention goes away real quick. They don't care anymore. Matter of fact, they come up with excuses as to reasons why it happened and say, just calm down. And since they're losing these arguments that they like to say they want to have these debates and these political conversations, this is how this administration has approached the facts behind what it is we keep seeing. 404 Media has reported that in the aftermath of Kirk's murder, Trump's Justice Department deleted a study from its website stating that right-wing violence continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism in the U.S. This comes as the Trump administration and Republicans completely and utterly blame political violence solely on the left. The study was available online at least until Friday. That's according to 404 Media, who reported this, but can now only be found from a Wayback Machine link. Not only are they hateful and covering up the fact that they're losing that discussion, that glimpse into reality that they refuse to have. They somehow think in 2025, no one can find these things that they're deleting, which even highlights the fact that they have this objective to delete it. Here, one more. This study that was published in 2024 and conducted by the National Institute of Justice is titled "What NIJ Research Tells Us About Domestic Terrorism." The first words in this study are militant, nationalistic, violent extremism has increased in the U.S. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. And in the same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. But if you have this conversation with someone who's believing in fascism and wants everything that Donald Trump and these guys are carrying out to be solidified and normalized further in our society, you'll just be spinning your wheels because they're going to stick their fingers in their ears and close their eyes and go la 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 la. But it's the left wingers. If they cared about shoring up the political violence, they would address where the political violence is coming from. Because of course there's going to be political violence from other sides too, as stats and numbers and reality just stated, to a far lesser degree. Because there's sometimes when people go, you know what, I'm going to pull off that type of stuff too. And sometimes it's in retaliation. This is the most obvious part. It's exactly what the people who are triggering these things want. That's why they're begging for it. That's why Donald Trump hasn't shut the hell up about how much he hates other people that oppose him as his people continue their onslaught on the country. That's not a new study. I said it the other day. I've been talking about the increase in right-wing political violence for the past 15, 20 years. I was doing that when Trump was in office the first time. Those studies were out there because, that's what they kept talking about. We kept seeing the increase in the violent extremist terrorists, homegrown terrorists in this country. That's who they are, bro. They celebrate it. They videotape them running through their compounds with guns and shooting at little dummies. There's political ads from candidates on for conservatives that are shooting dummies and saying, we're gonna blow this up and shoot that, and I'm gonna give away this AR. It's constant. We know the energy behind the movement. So, no more arguing over it. It's time to oppose it. Discussing it isn't gonna convince anyone. They already know. Speaking of which, this also happened up in Minneapolis.
These incidents of violence, several of which have been in crowded areas, are deeply troubling. And obviously, families, neighbors, and even children in our community should be safe from that. Minneapolis has been through some very difficult days recently. In the past 24 hours, we've had 2 mass shootings that resulted in 12 victims, having injuries ranging from a man with a graze wound who refused medical aid to 4 people with life-threatening injuries, 3 of whom are very, very seriously injured. Our officers responded immediately to each incident, secured the scenes, and we are actively investigating. In both of these incidents yesterday, dozens and dozens of pieces of evidence have been recovered, videos have been recovered, and we are pursuing a number of leads in both cases. We are devoting every available resource, not only to hold those responsible accountable, but to do everything that we can to try and prevent future violence.
As you see the Minneapolis police chief talking about the influx of mass shootings going on in the area. A couple happened in a couple of days, one at a transit center and then another at this homeless encampment. Think about those 2 areas and what types of folks may sometimes generally be hanging out in those areas. Let me give you details of the second one that left 2 people dead. At the homeless encampment, police learned of the shooting at this homeless encampment around 10 p.m. on Monday when an off-duty officer working at a nearby retail store was approached by people running from the camp and reported gunfire. The officer left the store and heard gunfire coming from that encampment area. They arrived on the scene and they found 5 people injured by that gunfire, including a woman and 2 men with life-threatening injuries. Another man and a woman suffered what appeared to be non-life-threatening wounds, with each having injuries to their legs. All 5 were then rushed to a hospital. There's more. This latest shooting happened at a homeless camp in a parking lot that has been at the center of a legal conflict between the owner of that property, Hamoudi Sabri, who opened it up to the homeless in July, and city officials who want it shut down. Sabri has refused to shut down that camp, and earlier this month, the city sued him to try to force its closure. Sabri is facing about $15,000 in citations and fines related to that encampment. So there's layers to this, bro. There's all the fighting that's happened between the leadership of the city and then this one particular guy. We've seen these fights in other cities and discussions about moving homeless encampments out, throwing people's things away, tearing up tents, and the small places that they use for shelter. It seems like it was happening here, and maybe it came to a head. I have other thoughts too, but here's more details. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry said in a news conference in the hours after the shooting that the city will be clearing this encampment immediately after the crime scene has been investigated. This is the worst. This is way worse than just a nuisance, he said. This is a danger to the community. The city followed through Tuesday morning on Fry's promise to clear that camp, drawing a crowd of dozens of camp residents and protesters. City workers were seen loading the bicycles, tents, and other belongings in the back of garbage trucks, while several people argued with police at the scene, saying that they were told that they could collect their few belongings before the encampment site was then cleared. After someone terrorizes this homeless encampment and shoots up several people, after that, the city steps in, shoves more people to the side who were promised to allow to get their few belongings, and threw them in the back of garbage trucks, smash things up like some people's forms of transportation, like bicycles. So again, the kind of attention we have to be given to people, and the kind of concern and care about whether or not someone has a family, whether or not someone has a life, whether or not someone has things, we just blow away and say, who cares? Who cares? They're unhoused people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that people came and shot up the area. So I want to show you guys a little quick clip of that I believe it's the mayor of the city talking about that beef that he had. So he's visibly upset.
This is simply not a strategy that works. It is not safe. Our obligation is clear. Help people transition into safer, healthier alternatives, not allow them to languish in conditions that guarantee the kind of tragedy that we just saw.
I don't know what kinds of programs the city is pushing and trying to get towards. I'm not sure what Jacob Fry, I believe his name, what his policies have been towards trying to transition people into safe areas. But they have been having battles with this man who opened up his parking lot to this encampment earlier in the summer. So whatever those programs are, I would like to see. Maybe he's going to display those later. Maybe he's going to implement those since it came to a head here. But let's not overlook the fact that he said them just being there is what then made these types of tragedies happen. Why is that? Your existence forces people to then want to come kill you. Where you're staying because you're homeless forces people to then come kill you. Why is that? Why do we accept that as a normal approach to this? Why do we think, yeah, I can say that in front of cameras after people have been terrorized like this? And it's been multiple shootings in multiple days in this same city. And then the leadership then says, this is why you shouldn't be there. What have you done to make sure that that's not the case? What have we done about our society to make sure that people don't think, yo, these people are annoying. I'm so tired of them. Let's just eliminate them. It's almost like we heard it recently on a national news program that a lot of people like to listen to.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right.
Just kill him. Just kill him. There was a half-assed apology after that, which meant absolutely nothing. It was right back to you, Lawrence, after that apology that ChatGPT wrote up for him. This is how rhetoric from major platforms leads to the kind of societal thought process that makes people go, those people don't matter. Man, they're annoying. Let's just kill them. Brian Kilmeade still has a job. Last I heard, I'm not sure if it happened overnight or this morning, but Brian Kilmeade is still employed at Fox News after advocating for people to be murdered. And then, for some reason, oddly, that influx of political violence based off of people's thoughts that are also piggybacked by this president who did the same thing in Washington, D.C., as far as scraping up people's areas and pushing them aside and saying that they don't matter. Rhetoric and actions and policy lead to people thinking they can do their vigilante versions of those same things. Because as many of these, we've seen these many people say, they live vicariously through their racist president. Y'all let me know if Brian Kilmeade still ends up with a job. And then after all this happens, after we see all this go down, the third in line to be president, second in line, I guess, since Trump's already there, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. We've been talking about rhetoric lately. He was asked about rhetoric, and specifically the guy with the biggest mouth and mouthpiece in his rhetoric.
Money. The political world to lower the temperature, cool down the rhetoric, and not use words like evil and enemy. President himself has referred to Democrats oftentimes as evil, enemy. Would you urge him, would you advise him to tamp down the rhetoric?
The president has been called the most despicable names by people on the left for a long, long time. I don't have to give you the catalog. It would be this thick. I need one of those Hakeem Jeffries notebooks to put up here and go through with you with all that. Look, there's a lot of heated rhetoric all around. And what I'm trying to advance here is this idea that we can have vigorous policy debates. That is the legacy of Charlie Kirk. He loved the debate. But he didn't hate the people on the other side, and that's what I'm trying to encourage all of us to remember. We can have vehement disagreements on policy, but it shouldn't be personal. At the end of the day, we're trying to bring people to our mode of thinking, and it's more effective that way when you handle it that way. And I think Charlie was a great example of that. Yeah.
The question was, would you tell Donald Trump to tone down his rhetoric, since we're talking about rhetoric? His answer was, Donald Trump gets called lots of names. In other words, the answer is hell no. Moses Mike Johnson wants more murders. Moses Mike Johnson wants more conflict. Moses Mike Johnson didn't have anything to say about these folks talking about race wars and white men fight back. Moses Mike Johnson had nothing to say about any of that. Mike Johnson works for Donald Trump's ass. Donald Trump, it lets him follow around with the sniff, the smell, the stench of his ass, drawing Mike Johnson in closer every time. All Mike Johnson cares about is protecting Donald Trump and his very, very, very thin skin, because he can't take it. He can't handle it, because Donald Trump gets called names. So if you get called names, that means your right-wing violent gang members in the streets can go around killing people based off of what it is that you dislike. I wonder what people can do when you have this kind of president.
It's a little bit of a takeoff. I look at her name. I look at a lot of people. I do a lot of names for people, like Pocahontas. She said, my mother said I look like an Indian, so I started calling her Pocahontas. Some people say I'm very good at that, but I can't get into too many, because many of those people that I named like that are Republicans, and we don't want to bring that up. But no, it's just it's a takeoff. I have fun with it. And sometimes, to tell you the truth, it's a very effective tool. But I do get credit for having been an originator of the term. I mean, a lot of times I have a very fertile mind. I come up with very good names for people.
You're very creative.
Pocahontas,
Yes.
lots of good names.
It's a very good tool for him. Donald Trump calling people names constantly throughout his entire life is what's a very good tool for him. But sorry ass Mike Johnson, his excuse for more political partisan violence that's way more heavily leaning to these right wingers is that people call Donald Trump names. All I'm doing is dispelling these guys' ridiculous arguments, which anyone can do. It's very simple, because these arguments that they have are very, very simple. So therefore, again, I guess I'll wrap up this story with, stop arguing with people who know that they want more political violence, that they then want more homeless encampments to be torn apart so they can salivate and go, yes, I wish I could have been the one to do that. Maybe I could have killed some people along the way, though, because that would have made my president happy, because he still hasn't condemned any of it. They want the violence. And when you don't bring them the violence, that baby in the White House, he says this when you just bring protests to him.
And a woman, in many cases, women, you can see they're professional agitators. I had one the other night. I had 4 the other night, all in one group, total phonies. I started to scream when I got into a restaurant, something with Palestine. And I said, well, I'm doing a great job for peace in the Middle East. I should get lots of awards for that, right? With the Abraham Accords and everything else. But a woman just stood up and started screaming. And she got booed out of the place, too. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. I went there to show how safe, and it was safe. I mean, the woman is just a mouthpiece. All she was a paid agitator. And you have a lot of them. And I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against the criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive. Yeah.
The fascist president has announced he wants RICO charges brought against Code Pink protesters for standing and yelling at him and saying nasty things about him, because he's a sorry ass, because he's a very, very little person. He has a dark soul. As a matter of fact, what he is he's this fascist that couldn't take this. This is what Donald Trump was bitching and crying about.
Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free DC! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free DC! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free DC! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your legacy to be? He's terrorizing communities. Let's go. Time to go. He's terrorizing communities. Time to go. Time to go. Puerto Rico. Let's go. Free DC, free Palestine. Trump is the Hitler of our time.
Donald Trump and his band of elitists in their ivory towers tried to have this photo op in Washington, D.C., and these Code Pink protesters showed up in the restaurant that his dumbass was going to and surprised him. And now he wants RICO charges brought against him. Hey, his former personal attorney, his former personal attorney, who's now his deputy attorney general, who's running, our Justice Department, he went on CNN and he had the nerve to say this about it.
As you know, RICO has been used to go after like Al-Qaeda, MS-13, the Gambino family. How would something like that protest fall under a RICO charge?
That's not what we use RICO for only. RICO is available to all kinds of organizations committing crimes and committing wrongful acts, not just organized crime or ISIS or terrorist organizations. And so it depends. So is it, again, sheer happenstance that individuals show up at a restaurant where the president is trying to enjoy dinner in Washington, D.C., and accost him with vile words and vile anger, and meanwhile, he's simply trying to have dinner? Does it mean it's just completely random that they showed up? Maybe, but to the extent that it's part of an organized effort to inflict harm and terror and damage to the United States, there's potential investigations there, and that's what the president was saying yesterday in the Oval Office, and what he also has said in the days before that as well.
These women stood there and screamed, "Free DC, free Palestine. Trump is the Hitler of our time," and this sorry ass called it inflicting harm and terror. They accosted him with their words and anger. Wow, these guys are weak. Imagine the things that they like to say about weak leaders in this country. Do you think any other foreign leaders can see this guy complaining about 4 or 5 women standing there yelling and holding out a Palestinian flag, and his feelings were so hurt that he's going to try and trigger RICO charges on them? Because, Todd Blanche says we can use that for anything because this is a fascist administration. I thought you heard we're fucking fascist. He wasn't even done. It got way worse.
But were those women in the restaurant inflicting harm or terror or damage by protesting the president of the United States? I mean, they were just shouting basically in his vicinity.
I mean, repeat what you just said. I mean, honestly, so you're asking whether there's damage done by 4 individuals screaming and yelling at the president of our United States while he's trying to have dinner. That can't be a serious question. That cannot be a serious question. I mean, it's true that there's a difference between shouting and committing an assassination,
There were supporters outside
which is what
as
happened
well.
to Charlie. Well, it depends. There's nothing wrong with peaceful protests, and nobody has ever said so. Of all the people in this country, President Trump knows exactly what it's like to have people protest against him. But what he's talking about and what the administration is talking about is organized efforts by individuals who are not present at the protests, but they're funding these protests, and they're not protests. They're inflicting damage and harm and actually assaulting officers. They're damaging vehicles, and that's the conduct that we're trying to stop.
See how it built into all that bullshit? You see that pile of shit that piled up next to Todd Blanche's head? He said, repeat what you just said. You said, is there harm being done by women that stood and screamed in Donald Trump's face? while he was trying to just have dinner. Okay, let's repeat it. Those women were harming and terrorizing the president by protesting in front of him. We repeated it, and it still doesn't make any sense that you said that that's harm and that's terror. But you see how quickly they related it right back to Charlie. They're going to keep using whatever happened to this guy as a crutch for their violence, for their lawlessness, and for their crackdowns on people's First Amendment rights. It's right in front of you. But then, of course, when you get pressed with the very slightest bit of pushback, it's no one said that protests are illegal in this country. Motherfucker, you just said that protests are illegal in this country because those women that were protesting apparently needed to be brought up on RICO charges. That would make it, illegal in this country. Don't let them try and wiggle their way out of it. That was an unfair discussion with that guy because his only point was, we're fascists. I'm just trying to give enough people that refuse to admit it more leeway to keep saying, well, they're only 95% fascists. Let's wait for the last 5% when they come to my front door before I finally give a damn about this. Because what they don't want protests because he was looking for photo ops. I want to make sure you guys realize that this wasn't any kind of like a formal event where anybody's coming and there's some foreign leaders or something. They have these national security threats. And oh my God, look at these people protesting, which by the way, they can do that too. But it's not even that. The harm was he wanted to go have dinner and have a photo op. And state media like Laura Ingraham was all over it.
Fox News alert, Donald Trump is out on the town. Dinner with members of his cabinet in D.C., showing it's safe to walk around the city after deploying the National Guard. Crime, as we know, has plummeted in the city, but President Trump talked to reporters just a few moments ago.
No crime we don't know has plummeted in the city. What we know is the city's on lockdown. That's what we know. And they're looking to make it permanent. That's what the fascists wanted versus what he got. So therefore, he was very, very upset about it. What else do I got? How we doing today, you guys? It's just the state of the country. It's just that enough people before he was in office said all this was going to happen. It's just that as soon as he got into office and he started signing all these executive orders, people said, yo, this is going to lead to fascism. That's all. So you have to acknowledge it so that you can then fight it. Just going to provide those facts. And, what makes it a lot harder to fight, and it's, again, part of this same plan. You can probably check it out in Project 2025, that document that he acted like he never heard of before. What they're going to do is continue to destroy our economy, enrich themselves, and make things a lot more desperate for people so their focus can't be on this type of stuff. Let me show you guys what Donald Trump and some exchanges that he had with reporters about just that, our economy and his vast wealth that he is now expanded upon because of his use and his fleecing of the White House for himself and his family.
You're generally regarded to be the wealthiest man who's ever occupied the White House. How much wealthier are you now than when you returned to the White House?
Well, I don't know. The deals I made, for the most part, other than what my kids are doing, they're running my business. But most of the deals that I've made were made before. And that's what I've done for a life. I built buildings, like I'm building a building here. You know where I built? You know what? You see that area? Yeah. That is going to be the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. And for 150, so it gives me pleasure to do it for the country. And I'm paying for it. I'm paying for it. The country's not, and that's an expensive ballroom. I think it'll cost $250 million. And it will be, I think, the finest ballroom. So for 150 years, John, you know this? They've wanted a ballroom. And now they're going to finally have it. And it's going to knock your socks off.
But is it appropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity?
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. Your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well,
Go ahead, John.
Okay,
Maybe you
you
can set a nicer
tone. The UAE does a deal. What does it want in return?
Quiet. Mr. President,
That exchange with that Australian reporter that Donald Trump just had was telling in so many ways. First of all, he was first asked, in case you guys couldn't hear his first question, he said, "You could be the wealthiest man to occupy the White House." And this asshole had a grin and said, "I hope so," because that's all he cares about. And then when being asked, when his brain switched back to the direct fascism at folks, he then asked him about the ballroom. And he said, "Well, I'm doing this for America and I'm paying for it." I'm looking for the documents to show that Donald Trump is paying for the $250 million ballroom that he says he's putting as an addition to the White House so that he can host more elitist parties with all of the people in the Golden Tower. How soon do we forget these folks who kept talking about all the populist views that he had? Where are all the populist supporters of Donald Trump as he keeps talking about how he can't go out to dinner without being interrupted by Code Pink? I can't have my $250 million ballroom where I can host all the rich people. He opened up the Rose Garden parking lot now where he had other elitists stand there, and he said it's like the White House Club or something. When are the populists going to come out with their pitchforks and be finally done with the fact that they got suckered into thinking that this guy ever gave a hot damn about anything else except for building his wealth, which he said, "I'm just doing it." But when pressed one more time, just a small press, he then started asking this guy's affiliation. "Where are you from?" "Well, your leaders are going to be here." This guy was from Australia. "Your leaders are going to be here in a few weeks." Who knows if Australian leaders are coming in? He just makes shit up anyway. And then I'm going to tell them about you. They're not going to be very happy because they're going to want some negotiations with me. Think about that mindset. Don't ask the president of the United States a question as a reporter, or else he's going to threaten you with then going to the leaders of the country you're from to tell them, "This reporter did that. You might want to get him away from me, or else I'm not going to give you any kind of negotiations or any kind of normalcy in our talks that we'll ever have because a reporter asked me a question." Somebody tell me how that's not fascist. So it's like, somebody tell me how that's not fascist, how that's a suppression of a free press. And you're going to go and talk internationally to someone else's leaders because you think those leaders are just like you are, how they're authoritarians, and then are going to suppress this guy so that they can please you. He thinks the world revolves around him, bro. It's crazy. And it's so much so, he doesn't think people can see the ridiculousness in the things that he says. Here he is on this economy that he's destroying and all this money that he's bringing in.
Some auto executives are concerned that compromising the 15% for auto tariffs coming in hurts American automakers. What do you say to?
Well, I haven't compromised anything. Where did I compromise?
Going down to 15% from
going down to 15%. We charge well. And where did the 25 come from? It came from there. You tell me. Just so you know, they paid nothing for years. Now they're paying 15%. And some things can pay more, like chips could pay more. Pharmaceuticals could pay more. There's a bigger margin. With a car, you have to make 15% before you make a profit. Pretty tough. So we had don't forget, European Union is paying our country because of tariffs $950 billion. Think of that. We're talking about a year. $950 billion. Japan is paying us $650 billion. These are countries that paid us nothing until I came along. And China's paying us a tremendous tariff. You know what the tariff is, right? You know what the tariff they're paying is? Yeah. What?
Yeah, so it's 30% for the fentanyl as well as whatever for the 301s.
20% for the fentanyl. But the overall is about 55%. Okay? That's as opposed to nothing. Would you say that's a difference?
I'd say the difference is we have an idiot in the White House who thinks everyone else that's listening to him is also as dumb as he is. How much is China paying? Zero. American consumers are paying all that. As he then brags about how much he's siphoning money from us. And those numbers aren't even what American consumers are paying. He keeps making numbers up. Remember, it went from $17 trillion before down to, I think, $8 bounced to 4 trillion. Then he had a couple hundred millions coming in. Also, the EU in total, just the EU. I guess, the EU just pays us $950 billion because it's the EU. And, that's what they do. They just collectively pay us a certain amount because those agreements are in place. It's the same lies that have been going on over and over and over again. That's how propaganda works. That's how, Nazis did it too.
Okay.
Go ahead. Good. We had talks going on. Scott Bessent is there and some others. Jameson is here. And yeah, I think they're going fine.
When will you impose tariffs on China?
We're going to see, but we've hit them very hard in so many other ways. I don't know if you know. Do you know what they're paying right now? What are they paying right now? You know what China is paying right now in tariffs? Huh? A lot.
Mr. President, have you been briefed on what happened in Minnesota?
That's his answer. Have you noticed in both of those instances of him talking about how much China's paying, he asks someone how much they're paying, and then he thinks, let me come up with a number. Let's say a lot. $950 billion from the EU, $650 billion from Japan. I'm not going to do it for the third time, but I went through that Politico article that talked about how none of those deals are in place. And if they were deals in place, we'd be paying that shit anyway. God, we're destroying ourselves for the whims of this empty-brained, egotistical asshole. That's what we're doing. And we could make fun of farmers that voted for him and now they suck. Their crops are going absolutely nowhere. You know what? Here's one. I do it all the time. Let's do another one. Because, since China's paying us all this money when it's actually zero, you know what's actually happening between farmers and soybeans in China? There's another zero.
Well, we've got a real disaster with this tariff deal. I mean, we produce 40% more agricultural products in this country than we can consume domestically. 1 in every 4 rows of soybeans in every field in the entire United States of America has to go abroad. China is the largest importer of soybeans in the world. They import 61% of the world's market. Last year, we sent around 12 billion, I think $14 billion worth of soybeans the year before. For the first time in 20 years, China's bought 0 soybeans and 0 new crop corn out of this country.
Zero?
So we went from 12 billion to 0.
Where are they buying the soybeans?
Brazil. You see, we lost 42% of our market share in the first tariff war. In Trump's first tariff war, the Chinese went to buying their soybeans from Brazil. They invested billions of dollars in Brazilian infrastructure. They have moved into Africa, and they're going to commercially farm in Africa. Since we left with USAID, they moved their Belt and Road program into Africa. So we've pretty much lost the Chinese market share. If we got 100% of the soybean business, Katie, for every country in the world except for Brazil and Argentina, we would still only have half the soybean business that China is.
Are you getting 100% of everything else?
Yeah, if we got 100% of everything else, we would still only have half the Chinese business.
Well, what do you?
How about those numbers? 12 billion to 0. So again, here's the last wrinkle of this guy's lies. First off, he keeps telling the lies about tariffs and how they're paying all this, but also how these countries that he's having these wars with have circumvented the United States. They started planning this back when Trump was in office the first time, and he had his first tariff war, which didn't get nearly as much attention as this one because it wasn't as rabid and complete and literally overwhelming for every aspect of his policy. But this guy, he pointed out how China has already circumvented the United States for soy and has gone to other countries, Brazil and parts of Africa as well. And now it went from $12 billion of our exports just in that one crop to 0. And so he keeps saying, I'm going to keep raising these tariffs on China, and they're going to come to the table because they need us. Matter of fact, they need us more than we need them, he said. Not according to Arkansas farmers. Apparently not according to Tennessee farmers either. Tennessee Holler a lot of times collects things that go on in the state. Here's a couple of those headlines. Quarter two from 2024, Chinese soybean purchases from U.S. was $3.16 billion just in quarter two. And look at that, quarter two of this year is zero. It's a big lighter blue number. Next to it said Tennessee soybean farmers face desperate situation amid inflation, weather extremes, and tariffs. What's the number one commodity in Tennessee? It asks. Soybeans. Trump's trade war is crushing Tennessee farmers. Last one from the Tennessee Home and Farm. The top soybean producing counties are Dyer, Gibson, and Haywood. Each produced more than 5 million bushels in 2024. But did you know they're bringing in $950 billion from the EU, and he's bringing in $650 billion, from Japan, and he's bringing every dollar that you can possibly scrape together out of your back pocket for his vanity projects, like the ballroom for the elitist White House club and his parking lot that used to be the Rose Garden. That's what people who vowed to be a king and a fascist authoritarian are doing to our country. It's just a matter of how long we're going to keep letting them do it. How about one of those enablers? Let's talk about some of these enablers. It's not just Donald Trump. There's people who knew about who this guy was, and they knew what tariffs and everything would do to the country. But really quick, one aside before I get to that one. I get a lot of people talking about these farmers and how they screwed themselves over. And I saw a show where they showed that Donald Trump, they voted for Donald Trump 64.5% in the last election, specifically in Arkansas, where that farmer was talking about how all their soybean crops have gone down to zero. So I get the F arounds and find out crowd. I understand it. It's just when it comes to things like that, it then goes and affects all the rest of us. It's this still constant thought that we're disconnected from one aspect of our country to another. It's how these folks are dismantling and destroying the country. They keep that division there so that when bad things then do happen to the people who enabled him, that he's giving middle fingers to now, we could be like, yeah, look at you. And it's still happening to us in another way. Just saying. When someone's completely attacking the country from within, it's an attack on everyone in the country. I was going to bring up Chuck Grassley. He's worried because he's a senator from Iowa. Iowa, big farm state.
We've got this farm crisis now, and this president should deal with this farm crisis right now. I'm hearing from bankers. I'm hearing from people that are getting pressed by their bankers to maybe sell part of their farm. So they want to sell to somebody that when they build up their equity, they might be able to buy it back. We haven't had this kind of stress in agriculture since the 1980s. Putting 50% tariffs on things that have steel in them when you can't buy those things in the United States and you need them for your tractor to be finally manufactured. There shouldn't be tariffs on things that you can't get in the United States. Why drive up the price of John Deere's because of a tariff on something they need for the tractor that they can't even get in the United States? It's a stupid policy.
It's weird that Chuck Grassley is calling, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley is calling Donald Trump's tariff policies stupid when somehow he couldn't figure out that they were stupid when other folks were calling them stupid. For some reason, Chuck Grassley's now upset and he has all these answers. Man, he's got it together. He's figured out that somehow when you have a stupid tariff policy that it's going to destroy people's farms, it's going to destroy their lives, it's going to raise prices, and we're going to pay the bill. It's weird because I feel like Chuck Grassley's been around long enough. He's 89 years old. I feel like he's been around long enough to realize what would have happened. And in case he didn't, back in April, like 15 days after he started implementing these tariff policies, for some reason, Chuck Grassley's hair was not on fire when someone asked him about what this is going to do to us.
Okay, my son has cattle.
Yes.
And he works at a regular job, and then he has cow-calf pairs.
Sure.
And so I just wonder how the tariffs will affect someone like him. So if market-wise and long-term.
From this standpoint, it could affect. It's too early to make a judgment if what I'm going to say will happen. But for instance, one benefit might be from the fact that Australia today doesn't take our beef. So if Australia is one of those 100 countries that have come to Washington now to negotiate because Trump put the tariffs on, and we can get our beef into Australia, that would be to his benefit. But it could also be negative from the standpoint that if people don't negotiate, because there's a lot more countries than the 100 that have so far come to the table, then we know from past years, not just under Trump, but under other presidents, that when you put something negative like a tariff on some country, they seem to retaliate against agriculture issues.
Weird how Chuck Grassley knew that retaliation could happen, but he was holding out hope. He said it was too early to make a judgment on the results of Trump's tariffs that could possibly be that good result of, say, Australia buying our beef. That same mindset, American mindset of strong arming people into trade, that Donald Trump thinks we're the best ever. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to do it because you have to. Are they doing it, Donnie? Are they doing it, Chuck? I feel like Chuck knew this was going to happen, but Chuck Grassley was way too cowardly at the time to say it then. And then after saying it, he's saying it now. I'm waiting. When are you going to now do something about it? When is Congress going to step in and be like, listen, we're going to take our rights back for when it comes to tariff policy? We're going to stop kowtowing and allowing everything that you come up in the top of your stupid head to do. And then after it happens, go, can you believe this? Our farmers are suffering. We're losing money. This is a crisis. Something needs to be done. This is a stupid policy. Who could have seen this coming? Fire his ass. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then if he does know what he's doing, he doesn't care until it's a problem for him to act like he cares about what's happening now. Why do we let incompetent people who are very extremely important positions in our country, who are supposed to represent us, be incompetent and let them stay in office? Why is that? If you go through like a McDonald's drive-through and they fuck up your order and give you the Big Mac with extra pickles when you ask for it with no pickles, you circle back around there, throw bags in their face and be like, you got this order wrong, to the minimum wage worker that's standing there. How these fries are cold. Why is that ice cream machine not working? I want to talk to your manager. But we won't talk to Chuck Grassley's manager. Or when Chuck Grassley shows up and tries to get elected again, we don't go, get the fuck out. You failed us. You fucked up the ice cream machine. Think about how stupid we are. We're going to keep kissing their asses, but we're going to fight with the 25-year-old working in McDonald's trying to get by. God, we're losers here. We're such losers. That's the end of the hour. I hope you guys stayed around. I wasn't supposed to go on yelling today. Did you guys notice? It was good until Chuck Grassley said all that stupid shit. It was good. Smooth sailing, bro. These will all be up on the page later, you guys. Come by, check them out. Like, share them. Also subscribe. Ring the bell. Make sure you guys know we're doing this every day, because we do it every day at noon Eastern, 9 o'clock on the West, 11 o'clock in the middle of the country. Wherever else you are in the world, I guess you got to check your phones and find out when noon Eastern is. Sorry about that. I don't really know. But I appreciate you guys for being here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We're headed down to the back end of the week. We're looking for some good news from somewhere. Tell TDR I say hey. See you later, Ma.